1977. A white suit, a finger pointing at the sky, and suddenly, the entire world wanted to dance. Saturday Night Fever didn't just make John Travolta a star, it turned disco into a religion. The soundtrack shattered records, dance floors became sacred ground, and for one shining moment, everyone believed they could be somebody on a Saturday night. But behind the glittering lights and falsetto harmonies, the real story was stranger, darker, and more obsessive than anything you saw on screen. Here are 20 bizarre truths about the film that defined a generation. Let's step into the fever. Number 1. Travolta became a disco monk for 9 months. Before filming began, John Travolta didn't just rehearse, he disappeared into dance 3 hours a day, every single day, for 9 months straight. But here's the bizarre part. He refused to let his stunt double perform a single move. He demanded cameras capture his full body in every shot because he wanted the world to see it was really him, sweating under those lights. According to IMDb, Travolta told the director, "If they can't see my feet, they won't believe it's me." Most actors train for roles. Travolta became possessed by one. Number 2. The studio called it a movie about dancing idiots. While Travolta was perfecting every spin, Paramount executives were placing bets on the film's failure. Internal memos actually described Saturday Night Fever as a movie about dancing idiots in polyester. They saw a TV actor still filming Welcome Back, Cotter, a disco trend they didn't understand, and a budget they didn't want to spend. One executive reportedly said, "Who's going to pay to watch this?" Then the soundtrack dropped, and everything changed. Number 3. The Bee Gees wrote the soundtrack blind. Literally. Here's where it gets weird. The Bee Gees hadn't seen a single frame of footage when they wrote Stayin' Alive, Night Fever, and How Deep Is Your Love. The studio told them one thing. It's about dancing. That's it. No script, no character details, no visual references. 3 brothers locked in a French studio, writing blind, somehow created the most iconic disco soundtrack in history. Songs that would define an era they couldn't even see. It shouldn't have worked, but the falsetto gods were smiling. Number 4. Travolta stole his walk from rebels and boxers. That legendary opening strut, paint can swinging, hips rolling, pure Brooklyn confidence, Travolta didn't invent it. He engineered it. He studied James Dean's restless prowl in Rebel Without a Cause. He watched Sylvester Stallone's working-class swagger in Rocky. Then he blended them into something new. A kid who looked like he owned the streets, even when the streets owned him. Tony Manero walked like a hero with nothing to lose, because that's exactly what he was. Number 5. The original script was a violent nightmare. The first draft of Saturday Night Fever wasn't a dance movie. It was a street crime drama that happened to have disco scenes. Tony's world was drenched in racism, gang violence, and sexual assault. The script pulled no punches about Brooklyn's ugliest corners. Director John Badham eventually softened the edges to let the rhythm breathe, but that darkness never fully left. Watch Tony's eyes in the quieter moments. That's not dancing. That's survival. Number 6. The disco was real, and it became a nightmare. The 2001 Odyssey wasn't built on a soundstage. It was a working-class club in Bay Ridge, where bridge and tunnel kids burned their paychecks every Saturday night, desperate to feel like somebody. After the movie exploded, the club became a victim of its own fame. Lines wrapped around blocks. Fire marshals shut it down twice for overcrowding. Bouncers turned away hundreds nightly. The owner later said, "We created a monster we couldn't control." The building still stands. Fans still press their hands against the glass, trying to touch 1977. But the disco floor went dark decades ago. Number 7. Travolta danced through death. While Travolta was erasing himself to become Tony, working at a Bay Ridge paint store, studying accents, perfecting every step, his girlfriend was dying. Diana Hyland, breast cancer. She'd played his mother in The Boy in the Plastic Bubble. They'd fallen in love on set. She was 41. He was 23. Travolta flew to Los Angeles, held her hand as she took her final breath, then flew back to Brooklyn and danced. Watch the scene where Tony breaks down in Stephanie's arms. That's not acting. That's a kid trying not to shatter on camera. Director John Badham later said, "We didn't know if John would finish the film, but he showed up every day and gave us everything. The grief you see on screen, it's real." And here's something that'll blow your mind. One of the film's most iconic dance sequences took 5 full days to shoot because Travolta refused to let anyone steal his spotlight. Stick around, because the back half of this story gets even stranger, including how a white suit almost wasn't white and how this disco movie nearly got slapped with an R rating for sheer brutality. Number 8. Travolta worked retail to become Tony. Method acting is one thing. This was method living. For 3 weeks, Travolta didn't just visit Brooklyn, he worked there, behind the counter at a Bay Ridge paint store, mixing latex and enamel, making small talk about weather stripping and primer, studying how a guy named Tony moves through the world when nobody's watching. One customer recognized him months later at the premiere. "That's the kid who sold me paint." She couldn't reconcile the movie star with the quiet guy who'd explained the difference between satin and semi-gloss. Travolta didn't just learn an accent, he became invisible. Number 9. The cast went full Brooklyn. No exceptions. Director John Badham had one non-negotiable rule. Everyone had to sound like they were born in Bay Ridge. The entire cast spent weeks hanging out in diners, bars, and street corners, recording conversations, mimicking rhythms, absorbing the distinct musicality of Brooklyn Italian-American speech patterns. If you sounded like Hollywood, you got sent back to the streets until you didn't. Number 10. The white suit was almost black, and history almost changed. Costume designer Patricia von Brandenstein originally selected a black 3-piece suit. Classic, safe, forgettable. Travolta walked into the fitting, looked at it and said, "No. White. It has to be white." She pushed back. He insisted. His argument? Under those dark disco lights, black disappears. But white glows. He was right. That suit became one of the most recognizable images in cinema history. It later sold at auction for $145,000 to a buyer who reportedly refuses to reveal whether he's ever worn it. One color choice, entire legacy changed. Number 11. Travolta's co-star almost got cut for being too old. Karen Lynn Gorney was 33, playing a character in her early 20s. Producers wanted someone younger, someone prettier, someone more marketable. But when she auditioned with Travolta, something unexpected happened. Tension. The kind you can't fake. Part chemistry, part friction, entirely electric. Turns out the age gap, the professional rivalry, the personal distance between them, it made Stephanie and Tony's complicated dynamic feel dangerously real. Sometimes, casting mistakes create magic. Number 12. Travolta's real mother sold him pizza on screen. Look closely at the opening scene. That woman handing Tony 2 slices through the window? That's Helen Travolta, John's actual mother. She has no lines. She's on screen for maybe 3 seconds. But for Travolta, having her there, watching him strut down that Brooklyn street, paint can swinging, made Tony's journey feel like a blessing. A mother watching her son become a star, disguised as a pizza vendor watching a regular kid walk by. Number 13. The pizza scene. Nearly killed Travolta's love for pizza. That effortless bite and walk in the opening? It took dozens of takes. Different angles, different lighting, different timing. Slice, slice, until Travolta joked he could taste tomato sauce in his nightmares. Director John Badham was obsessed with getting Tony's rhythm perfect from frame 1. By take 30, Travolta reportedly said, "If I have to eat one more slice, I'm quitting acting and opening a sandwich shop." He didn't eat pizza again for 2 years. Number 14. Some of the most iconic moves were accidents. Despite 9 months of rehearsal, Travolta occasionally just improvised. In the middle of choreographed sequences, he'd throw in a spin, a freeze, a gesture that wasn't in the plan. The cameras kept rolling. The other dancers adjusted. And some of those spontaneous moments became the shots that defined the film. One particular improvised spin, The one where he locks eyes with the camera mid-rotation? That wasn't rehearsed. That was Travolta reminding everyone, "I own this floor." Number 15. The film sparked a genuine global mania. After December 1977, the world lost its mind. Disco clubs opened in every city. Department stores sold out of white suits and platform shoes. Dance schools had waiting lists. People quit jobs to become DJs. The finger point became a greeting. It wasn't just a trend, it was a contagion. Saturday Night Fever didn't reflect culture. It infected it. Number 16. The Bee Gees hated being called disco artists. Irony alert, the band that defined disco spent years insisting they weren't disco artists. "We're pop musicians," they'd say in interviews, visibly uncomfortable. "We just happened to write songs for a disco movie." But Saturday Night Fever welded them to the genre forever. When disco died in the early 80s, the Bee Gees' careers nearly died with it. They spent a decade trying to escape the falsetto shadow they'd created. The very success that made them immortal also trapped them. Number 17. A deleted scene would have changed how we see Tony. One cut scene had Tony alone in a church, kneeling in a pew, silently praying. No dialogue, just a lost kid talking to God about choices he couldn't take back. It was supposed to show his spiritual conflict, the Brooklyn Catholic guilt eating him alive beneath the confidence. Badham cut it to keep the pacing tight. But imagine, if we'd seen Tony pray, would we have understood him differently? Would we have forgiven him faster? Sometimes what you remove changes the story as much as what you keep. Number 18. The dance floor was a literal oven. Those glowing colored panels beneath the dancers' feet? Not CGI, not movie magic, manual labor. Technicians had to light each square individually from below. The heat from hundreds of bulbs turned the floor into a griddle. Between takes, dancers would stand on chairs to let their feet cool down. The air smelled like melted rubber and desperation. One dancer later said, "We weren't just performing. We were surviving." Disco wasn't glamorous. It was sweat, blisters, and burning souls. But on camera, pure heaven. Number 19. Travolta said no to the sequel, then said yes. After the film's explosive success, Paramount wanted Saturday Night Fever 2 immediately. Strike while the iron's hot. Cash in on the craze. Travolta refused. He told the studio, "Tony's story isn't over, but it needs time to grow. I need time to grow." He waited 6 years. When he finally returned in Staying Alive, of 1983, directed by Sylvester Stallone of all people, the world had moved on. Disco was dead. The sequel flopped. Sometimes saying no is right. Sometimes waiting too long means the moment dies anyway. Number 20. The Library of Congress declared it sacred. In 2010, Saturday Night Fever was inducted into the National Film Registry, the Library of Congress's way of saying, this matters forever. Not just as a disco movie, not just as a Travolta vehicle, but as a cultural landmark. A film that captured the desperation, hope, and rhythm of a generation that danced because standing still meant admitting defeat. Tony Manero wasn't just a character. He was a mirror. And we're still looking. And there you have it. 20 bizarre facts, one white suit, and a legacy that refuses to fade. Saturday Night Fever didn't just capture a moment, it created one. It taught us that on a Saturday night, under the right lights, to the right beat, anyone could be somebody, even if just for 3 minutes. If you loved this journey back to 1977, hit that like button, subscribe, and drop a comment telling us which movie we should dissect next. And if this disco deep dive got your heart racing, you need to check out our video on Jaws, 1975. 20 bizarre facts you didn't know. Same obsession, same secrets, same truth. The greatest films are built on passion, pain, and people who refuse to quit. Until next time, keep the rhythm alive. And remember, you should be dancing.